Call our city council meeting for August 14, 2019 to order. You know, at this time for our moment of silence, I had a great opportunity today to go to Buchanan School for their Camp Reimagine program. We're working in partnership with the AmeriCorps and our Parks and Rec department with and that was important there. That's more of a school-based program. We had another one I'm going to talk about Parks and Rec and that as well. Kids who are spending the summer continuing their learning, getting great opportunities. You can see all the excitement on their faces. I went around to the different rooms where the kids were really excited that someone acknowledged them and called them by name. We also had a chance earlier with our Parks and Rec Executive Director, Chad Dyson, and staff, and the AmeriCorps program at Lincoln Elementary with the Stepping Stones program. Senator Joni Ernst met us there, talking about the importance of the food program that we have, but also seeing the excitement in the kids' faces as well as being in that place and getting that love and attention that they were getting this summer in that program. You know, as we think about, as we head into the school year, continue to have wherever you see kids throughout the community, whether they're walking down the street, try to see that look of hope and opportunity in their eyes. And if not, maybe just calling them out, introducing yourself might be one of the ways that you can help them with that as they get ready to head into the school year. And whatever we can do to help would be greatly appreciated by them, but by all of us as well. With that, a moment of silence, please. Thank you very much. Alderman Rawson, would you lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Alderman Rawson. And we're delighted to have Tiffany with us this evening, filling in for Brian. So, Tiffany, would you please call the roll?
Ambrose?
Here.
Condon?
Here.
Rawson?
Here.
Dickman?
Here.
Tompkins?
Here.
Grip?
Here.
McGinnis?
Here.
Kluel?
Present.
Mattson?
Here.
Dunn?
Here.
All present, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Tiffany. And again, I wish you a good evening. And as we begin this meeting of our City Council, I would like to welcome all those in attendance and those who are viewing the meeting on your computer or on a mobile device. We respectfully welcome your comments and opinions. Please keep in mind that as you talk to the council, you are also sharing your thoughts with fellow Davenporters and with viewers throughout the region, as our City Council meetings are recorded and available on the City of Davenport website for viewing. We are happy that you're participating in your city government and ask that your participation reflect the common desire we all share to make Davenport an even greater place for all of our citizens. For the children, adults, seniors, and families in our community, those in attendance and those watching at home or on their device, I thank you for joining us. At this time, we ask that you turn off or silence your cell phones and other electronic handheld devices, as they can interfere with the audio system and be disruptive here in the chambers. If you wish to address the council on a specific item on the discussion agenda, you are encouraged to do so during that discussion item. You will have an opportunity to address the City Council under Public with Business, that portion of the meeting which will occur towards the end. When addressing the council, I ask that you step to the podium, wait to be recognized by myself, and speak to the council as a body and not to any single member. We will ask that you limit your remarks to no more than 5 minutes, and I ask that everyone observe, and I know you all will, the commonly accepted rules of courtesy, decorum, dignity, and good taste. So again, thank you all very much for being here. Will an alderman move the approval of the City Council meeting minutes for July 24th? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Any opposed, same sign. Thank you. Those are approved. Do we have a city administrator update this evening?
Nothing this evening, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Will an alderman move approval of the report of the Committee of the Whole for August 7th, please?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Any opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. That report is approved. We have two proclamations this evening. One is American Wind Week, and Alderman Kluel will lead that and present that proclamation.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, having spent my career as a natural resources guy with the Department of Defense, it gives me pleasure to read the following proclamation. Whereas Iowa ranks second in the nation for wind power capacity with nearly 9,000 megawatts installed, producing enough electricity to power 2.1 million homes. And whereas Iowa's wind production also ranks second in the nation at 33.7% of all in-state electricity production, with current and future projects estimated to bring wind's share of electricity production to over 40% by 2020. And whereas Iowa is home to 114 wind farms and 10 wind-related manufacturing facilities, and whereas wind powers opportunity in cities and communities all across Iowa, resulting in $58 million in state and local tax payments and $20 to $30 million in land lease payments in 2018 alone. And whereas wind farms in Iowa have attracted over $16.3 billion in private investment to date, helping to spur critical investments in communities that fund manufacturing jobs, education programs, and local economic development projects. And whereas the development of wind power now supports nearly 10,000 jobs across the state, and whereas the advancements in wind power will greatly enhance our ability to attract new businesses and talent to our state and community, and wind energy will continue to grow as a major force in the U.S. economy. Now, therefore, we, Frank Klipsch, Mayor and City Council of Davenport, Iowa, do hereby proclaim the week of August 11th, 17th, 2019 as American Wind Week, and encourage all citizens to learn more about wind's impact on our community and celebrate Iowa's leadership in wind energy production. I move this proclamation.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. The individual was unable to come tonight to accept it for us, so we'll keep that in the files and make sure we extend that to that individual and our community as well. Our second proclamation will be presented by Alderman Rawson, and it is our Water and Wastewater Workers of Iowa Week.
Thank you, Your Honor. Proclamation. Whereas the surface and groundwaters of the city of Davenport, our region and nation, are our city and country's greatest natural asset. And whereas the water treatment, stormwater, and wastewater workforce is dedicated to maintaining the natural and built infrastructure that conveys and cleans our water resources for use and reuse. And whereas the engineering and environmental science-based practices in water, stormwater, and wastewater processing continue to be a vital element in protecting public health and enhancing our water resources. And whereas the services provided by these professionals are an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives, and now therefore we, Frank Klipsch, Mayor, and the City Council of Davenport, Iowa, do hereby proclaim the week of August 18th through the 24th, 2019, as Water and Wastewater Workers of Iowa Week, and encourage all citizens to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in water treatment, stormwater pollution prevention and runoff reduction, and wastewater treatment, and to recognize the contributions our water professionals make every day to promote sustainability, protect public health, and our water resources. Dated this 14th day of August, 2019, and I move the proclamation. And there's a second. Thank you.
All in favor say aye. Any opposed, same sign.
And I'll come down and...
Alderman Ross will make the presentation.
I just wanted to say we're really excited. Our State of Iowa Stormwater and Wastewater Management Conference is actually going to be in Davenport next year. We were selected to host that conference in big part to Dan Myers, our Water Pollution Control Plant Manager's activity in that group. So just thank you all for your support and recognize his efforts in getting that conference here and making it an important part of Davenport. So thanks.
Thank you, Nicole. Let's give them a nice round of applause. Some of you may wonder, why is there a cornet sitting on that table? I know you all been wondering that. The reason being, and I'm going to ask Major Bladel and Chief Carlson to come up in just a moment for the picture. I don't know if he left already. But I just wanted to recognize this is the first annual First Responders Award for the BIC 7 road race. It's a new recognition, and our combination team between our police and fire department came together and actually blew everybody away, won by, I think, 2 minutes, I think is what it was. I think it was 2 minutes. It's going to be 2 minutes now. But did a significant lead, and actually Ed Froelich was actually very impressed with their times as well. So it's rightly started in Davenport, and that's where the trophy will be over the next year. So we're delighted to be able to be the first recipients of the First Responders Big 7 trophy. So if you guys want to come up a minute, we'll just hold it up for a picture.
No, it does work. He did such a fine job.
Huh? Oh. Okay, our next are petitions and communications from the council and myself. We're going to turn this over to Alderman McGinnis as our community engagement chair.
Thank you, Your Honor. A few things tonight. First of all, next Tuesday you can learn more about wetland management with Army Corps of speaking of water, with Army Corps of Engineers Project Manager Al Froelich. We're losing these vital parts of our ecosystem, just as recent flooding has underscored how important they are in helping control runoff into the Mississippi River. Al will speak at two partners of the Scott County Watershed Forums on Tuesday the 20th. He'll be at Eastern Iowa Library at 12 noon and the Walcott Library at 5 p.m. And then secondly, the public is cordially invited to the grand opening of the Naval Station Apartments Wednesday, August 21st from 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. at 2104 West 6th Street. This was a project that involved a number of state tax credits, other items, this extremely derelict Buchanan School Naval Station building in sight, which looked like something from Beauty and the Beast now looks like Beauty and the Beast at the end. It's been transformed into 18 market and moderate rate apartments. You have to come and see this for yourself because you will not believe the change. So I hope you can join the folks who have done this for that. And the third ward meeting is Monday, August 19th, 6:30 p.m. at the Davenport Police Department's community room. Executive Director Brian Ritter with Nahant Marsh will be on hand to talk about the marsh, its programs, and the important role it plays in keeping our Mississippi River healthy. And finally, this week's Party in the Park is at Whalen Park, 72nd Street and Hillendale Road, tomorrow from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. There'll be games, food, entertainment, a chance to get to know city staff from across all apartments. And Your Honor, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. Did you know that the largest subdivision ever built in Iowa was the surrounding Ridgeview neighborhood, where a house was built every 30 minutes, and that children living there went to school in vacant houses for a full year after the subdivision opened?
But what year was that?
This was in 1954. This and more fun facts.
But I didn't remember that.
Well, this and more fun facts at Party in the Park tomorrow at Whalen, 5:30 to 7:30. Hope you can join us. And thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Alderman McGinnis. Alderman Mattson.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to say thanks to Parks Department and Mr. Dyson, Art Stone Company, Bill Churchill, Al Peterson, leaders of the Friends of Veterans Memorial Park, Hampton Crane, who provided a huge semi-size crane to move the stone yesterday at Veterans Memorial Park downtown on the south edge of Marquette. We put in a big memorial stone to remember all the veterans, military, and families that have passed. So it's in now, and then it wasn't a big media event. The big media event's coming next when we add a stone that will recognize all the donors to the park. So the Hampton Crane Company donated their time and the crane to move it, because it was thousands of pounds, and the Parks Department did a lot of the work fancying it up and getting this squared away. So go down to Veterans Memorial Park and see the nice stone that has a star on top that was cut out of an original stone. It isn't a separate piece. So the work to do that, it was pretty impressive. So I just want to say thanks to the friends that are continue to do that, and there will be a big event coming shortly when we add the other stone. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Mattson. Alderman Rawson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just want to let everyone know I'm having a Dream Project meeting at the Hilltop Campus offices on 15th Street. The exact address is 122 East 15th Street, and it's open to everyone across the city. So it's basically an open hours, 2 hours this coming Saturday from 1 to 3 p.m. It's just a drop-in. If you've had questions about the Dream Project, really didn't want to call or come down to City Hall, you can just stop in there. It'll be very informal, very laid back. I will be there. A couple of staff people will be there, and we can kind of talk to you about the program, eligibility, and if you bring paperwork, maybe even fill out an application, it'll be just a kind of a fun, relaxed atmosphere. So anyone can attend and show up this Saturday at Hilltop offices, 122 East 15th Street from 1 to 3 o'clock, and I look forward to seeing some people be there. Thanks.
Thank you, Alderman Rawson. Alderman Condon.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one fun thing quick. I'm not sure if we got a chance to talk about it here, but the Parks Department opened up the Ninja Warrior playground. And if you haven't had a chance to go down there yet, I encourage you to do so. It's at Sunderbrook Park. The sign encourages people 13 and up to participate. And it's just something that's really neat. I happened to be in the park right when they were getting it started, and bring your sense of humor and be willing to laugh at yourself. I think you'll be surprised what you can do. And again, you'll laugh at yourself to discover what you can't do. Yeah.
Did you do it?
I did it, and my family cheered for me, but I knew when to stop. So the 6-foot leap was a little beyond me. But yeah, I encourage you guys to go down there and watch other people do it and get the courage to participate yourself.
I feel it.
Thank you, Alderman Condon. A couple quick things. I received this letter yesterday from Senator Grassley, and it says, addressed to me, congratulations on being awarded Tree City USA recognition. I salute you and your commitment to establishing and conserving healthy community forests. These forests are integral to the air and water quality as well as energy conservation within your community. As your senator, I am pleased to send my best wishes on this extraordinary occasion. On behalf of all Iowans, I commend you on a job well done. And obviously this goes to our arborist and our city staff for the work that they do. So Nicole, please pass that on to all of them as well. And it's signed, all my best to you. And again, congratulations, Senator Charles Grassley. So that's great. And the other one I just wanted to mention, last night we had our joint meeting with the Citizen Advisory Council and Committee, and relating to the use of the CDBG funds, Community Development Block Grant funds. And it's impressive to see how well they do representing all of us and the use of those funds throughout the community and how they have an impact. So I just wanted to note and give them a little recognition as well. So, seeing no, we do. Alderman Mattson.
Thank you for a second time. I forgot, it's right here in front of me. A huge thanks goes out to our police department and the community around Vanderveer for that cops and cones. I probably am not correct in the amount, but I think it's like in the amount of 1,600 pounds or cones or something of ice cream. The lines were around the fountain to get the ice cream, and the amount of police officers and interaction with the children. My wife and I, we've been to most of them, and this was by far the biggest and most successful. And the band and the people that came, and many of my colleagues did, and it was just a really cool thing to see. And the interaction with the kids and the police officers was probably the best that I've seen in a long time. So my hat's off goes to you folks that did that.
I just want to add very quickly that same thing. I know most of my colleagues up here were at the event last night, and another one of those things I could have added to the part of seeing smiling, hopeful faces. There was a lot of smiling, hopeful faces there last night. Much of it had ice cream all over it, but it was still a great opportunity to see all the kids involved. So thank you for reminding and saying that, Alderman Mattson. Our next item is individual items of approval on our discussion agenda. One is the first consideration for ordinance for case number ORD 19-02, being the request of the City of Davenport to amend various sections of Title 17 of the Davenport City Code entitled Zoning. Before we go on with that, Bruce, would you come up a moment, please? I know we had some questions last time, and there's some work in progress. I think the idea was taking a few items, and because of potential confusion, to eliminate those from the ordinance, but then looking to build those back into a resolution, that all the things that we're currently doing, make sure we're not eliminating any of the transparency or other items we're going to do. So maybe talk a little bit about that, not necessarily the specifics, and I'm going to let anybody from the public want to say something, but then the alderman as well.
Sure. Bruce Berger, your Community Planning and Economic Development Director. So discussion last week was about, there's a segment of the proposed amendment that includes notification on rezoning actions. Some of the confusion, I think, stemmed from, gosh, we don't want to step back from that. So I think what we've clarified a little bit, and I think what the compromise we've worked out is most of what we used to do was part of just standard operating procedure for those notifications. They got put into our city code, which got adopted in January. And then what's being proposed now is probably the ideal way to deal with those notification requirements is to do it through council resolution. So what will be coming, what's in front of you with other amendments as well is a 6-week process. So that's a 3-reading ordinance change to remove those public notification requirements. What we heard from you all was a resolution adopting those requirements, those public notification requirements can be adopted in a single cycle, and that will be, we'll be putting on the agenda for next week. So you'll have that in front of you. In theory, you could approve that if that works out, even in advance of removing them from the existing code. So that, I think.
Thank you for your clarification on that. Is there anyone from the public who wants to speak on that issue? Seeing none, Council, Alderman Mattson. Whoops. Who? Oh, please, come on up.
Hello, my name is Jim Shoemaker. I'm the general manager of Lamar Advertising. Our office is up on Tremont. I don't know if I have the cart ahead of the horse, but I understand we're reviewing the spacing between the sign ordinance. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. We were part of the ordinance, that process with Matt and staff and some others here from the outset. We were aware of the changes and looking at the sign code and everything. The spacing in the city of Davenport used to be 1,500-foot radius spacing, so kind of the way the crow flies. And we had worked with that ordinance, spacing between signs and development of our product for probably a couple decades since that changed. And when we saw the change that it was moving to 1,500-foot spacing, lineal spacing on the same side of the road, we saw that as a favorable change for us. And we were in support of that change and continue to be in support of something similar along those lines. I understand there's a possibility it could revert back to 1,500-foot radius. And the concern is, as most of our properties we lease, and the concern is when we lose a location or a development or eminent domain, we have a hard time replacing that inventory for the business community and our customers here in the Davenport community. So for instance, if we have a sign on Brady Street heading north, and we have another sign and we want to develop a property on 53rd, 2 different traffic patterns and trying to capture that audience, 2 different audiences, but because of the radius spacing, we can't develop something 3 blocks away around the corner that you can't see. So the state of Iowa and most communities have linear spacing along the same side of the road or on both sides of the road. When the consultants presented this, it made sense. It was consistent with what the states do. And when we apply for state permit, it's all linear spacing, both sides of the road considered between signs as they go. Davenport's, again, has been stringent for us, and we've lost signs along the way. We're losing some on River Drive with development, and we have a hard time as the community continues to grow and develop, and our customers want to be in this development area to target potential customers. We're limited to where we can be and where we can go because of the radius spacing with the footprint we have today. So we would be in favor of some sort of compromise, that it doesn't go back to the radius because we've continued to lose our inventory, those opportunities for our customers, and we would be favorable of looking at some kind of compromise that would be consistent with what is applied in the state, the federal, and other communities we service, so that we have the opportunity to develop and provide that product as a medium for our customers, the business community. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention as you consider these changes. We are in favor of doing something other than what the ordinance used to be, the radius spacing, and we'd like to be involved in that process, whether it be meeting with planning and zoning to come up with something, because we thought that when that was passed, it was kind of exciting for us that we would have opportunities to develop and we can only be on certain zonings. There's not a whole lot of opportunity. C2 zoning and industrial is the only place billboards are allowed in the city of Davenport. So it's very difficult for us to develop because of all the overlay districts, the historic nature of downtown, plan unit developments that have their own covenants and all the above. So C2 zoning is our friend, and it precludes us from building. When we were looking at a sign on this road and we want to develop on the road 2 blocks down on a right-hand 90-degree, and it's in 2 different neighborhoods, but because we're looking at it from an aerial view of radius spacing, it precludes us from developing. So we would not be in favor of going back to the radial spacing because we've lost signs through attrition through the years, and it's kind of a death of 1,000 cuts, if you will, because as we continue to lose a lease or development takes place, we can't replace that inventory somewhere else or where future development and growth is happening, like out on 53rd right now. So I appreciate that. I just wanted to bring that to your attention with consideration of that it definitely would have a negative impact on us. We would be fine with the state of Iowa considers both sides of the road. So if you have a sign on this side of the road, you would have to go measure up and then across. Both sides are considered, as the ordinance is today, you could build across from another sign. So by considering both sides of the road, that alleviates and provides, I think, a more comprehensive plan and control of placement. But it again will provide us opportunity at least to develop.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bruce, do you want to just, if you mentioned, is this correct that this is, or I'm not sure if that Bruce or Matt, maybe Matt, is this issue in there? And we can definitely take a look at it and work with the gentleman between sessions here, before now and the next cycle.
Matt Flynn, Community Planning and Economic Development Department. Yeah, we'd be happy to sit down with Lamar. They have been involved throughout the process in terms of, how the ordinance evolved to what's in there now is maybe irrelevant, but as I told the representatives is that, this is a good opportunity. We're still in that kind of breaking in period, and we can certainly review, their suggestions and come back with more
Great.
information.
And again, moving this forward tonight is just the first cycle of 3, so it'd give us time then between cycles to have a good discussion. Okay? Thank you. Let's turn to the Alderman. Alderman Mattson. Is there anybody else from the public, first of all? Seeing no one, Alderman Mattson.
Thank you, Your Honor. So I know that we have more discussion, and that's good, but I'm still concerned with some of this. An ordinance is stronger than a resolution. If there's some word changes, and I think Alderwoman McGinnis might talk to those here in a second, from will to may or shall or some of that, fine, we can discuss and we can talk about that. But when it goes to should we give more notice or should we not, or should we take the notice and put it here, or should we do this, weighing in the fact, and we've talked about it many times here, more notice to the public, more notice for meetings, more notice to residents, whether it's a hardship variance or a rezoning or whatever, we should always weigh on more notice and more information. So I'll continue to listen, continue to discuss, but I don't see why we can't keep the ordinance. And if we want to wordsmith a couple things like will or shall or may, then tweak the words. And then we can do a resolution so that we can show that we're doing everything we can to keep the notices aware and the public informed, whether it's a mailing notice or a sign notice. I think we should do all of that. And I know, again, there'll be some, Alderman McGinnis will talk about some days and how many days we should give. Again, weighing on the side of more is better. So keep the ordinance, change a couple words, fine. Don't get rid of it so that it has some teeth and the public understands we want the teeth in it, in my opinion, and then do a resolution so we emphasize that we're giving as much transparency and notice and public view as we can. So I want to keep talking about it, but any alerts we can do is a good thing. I do not at this point want to get rid of the notice. Tweaking words is fine. And to Mr. Berger, you've heard from us. Well, I mean, you heard from some of us about what to do, but certainly I don't think it's the right thing to just change this. We put it in the zoning. There's been a lot of discussion, at least that I've heard from people and people sitting up here, that we wanted this in. And when we were going through the huge zoning change, one of the things people kept saying was, when we come to zoning, I didn't know. So the more emphasis we can do, having an ordinance and a resolution, I think, is a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Mattson. Alderman McGinnis.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I'd like to thank staff for the, giving us a resolution, a draft resolution to look at. I do have a couple of comments and I have a couple of questions. So let me comments first. I agree that I understand that what we require a greater burden on our city than most cities have to in Iowa. I understand that, what we do is more, requires more of ourselves, and I'm glad of that. And I think I know that we want to be a transparent city, and I believe that staff believes that as well. So I see no reason to take what has become part of the city, and is now part of the city code, the municipal code. I don't know oh, that's Ray. I'm sorry. I hear something. It was Ray's mic. So I don't see why we should take something that now we have made part of city code and completely take it out and turn it to an ordinance. I agree with Alderman Mattson about that. An ordinance is easily changed. It's changed in one cycle. An ordinance takes longer than that to change, and I think that's a good thing in this case. So I'm really not, I really don't favor going to a resolution. I understand that the explanation last week was that there was an issue perhaps with how it was stated, and that it put a burden on the city to deliver a letter rather than the city mailing a letter. I'm fully in support of language that says the city will mail. But so that there's not then some legal obligation that somehow somebody has to get it and we're responsible for them getting it and opening it. So I'm in support of changing that. But I really am not, I really do not want to see this out of the ordinance. Now, I do have some questions as well. Having said all that, I do have some questions as well. One of them, or one question, and this isn't a question, this is a statement, but since we have kind of opened this can of worms back up, one issue I have had always as a resident of the city, and having dealt with zoning changes and having to deal with protests and go to my neighbors and say we need to deal with this, is the amount of notice. I think that 4 days is insufficient. And if we're going to be making changes, I would suggest that we go to 7 days. I understand this slows the process down. I understand that it means that people requesting some sort of change would have to get that paperwork in earlier so that it can then be prepared by staff to, to go to our various commissions that it would go to. I don't think 4 days is realistic. At least twice a week, I get misdelivered mail from my neighbors. It takes a day, if I'm putting it back out to the post office to get back, it's 2 days until they get it. This happens all the time, and it probably happens to other people as well. I don't see why 4 days is enough. we say that at planning and zoning, the protest rate doesn't matter and that it only comes into play when we get to city council. But in fact, I've seen it's there for planning and zoning to look at, and I've seen it referenced in planning and zoning documents that, oh, well, it's not a very high protest rate. Well, there's no time for people to pull this together when you give them 4 days notice. So I think it should be 7 days since we have opened this back up. The other question I have is on the zoning, the table that we were given. In the case of special, this is kind of a question, but perhaps a comment. In the case of special use and hardship variance, this does not require a neighborhood meeting. I would assume that is perhaps because this is a ZBA requirement, or I'd like to know why we don't require a neighborhood meeting. These can have obviously profound effects on adjacent properties. If someone's saying, oh, gee, let me go up to the line because my car wash business won't be successful without it. But the next neighbor over is perhaps residential property, as an example. So I would like that question answered as to why we wouldn't have neighborhood meetings. I sort of understand the right-of-way and easement vacation because that tends to be a very specific, small thing. I don't understand unless the reason is because these are ZBA actions rather than planning and zoning actions. So I'd like to know why there's no neighborhood meeting requirement, and there wasn't before, so I'm asking for more here. The other question I had was a little bit of explanation, and I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing, but more explanation about the language for city-initiated zoning map amendment. Now, this may be in the new zoning code right now, but in the original resolution for changes that we were given, the scrivening, this is much more than scrivener errors here that we're doing, but it didn't talk about this, but in the resolution we were given, it's talking about exception for city-initiated zoning map amendment. So I'd like to know why that language is in the resolution. So questions are, special use and hardship variance, why no neighborhood meeting? Questions are, exception for city-initiated zoning map amendment and why we're looking at that now. And my comment on the 4 days, or my thought on the comment days is I'm not asking to have an answer to that. So if I could get a couple of answers about those two questions, I'd appreciate it.
Well done. Thank you, Alderman McGinnis. Alderman Grip.
Thank you, Your Honor. Last week, as we discussed this, I didn't make any public comments. I was kind of listening to the concerns of the other alder people and trying to form my ideas. But the two things that I heard from my colleagues, the first was that we want a robust and well-defined notification process. We do not want to weaken the current process that we have. And then the second thing I heard is that we do not want to house this process in a way that opens up the city to potentially expensive legal actions. So I've got another comment, but I guess my question for Tom would be, is there a way to, in your opinion, to keep this in the ordinance in a way where we can soundly write it to protect us from legal action? Or in your opinion, do we need to, the place for it to be is a resolution?
Sure, I can take a look at the ordinance and look at some language for the ordinance, but it's going to be similar to the way it was a year ago, where some of these are courtesies as opposed to mandatory. But I still think you want a resolution that sets forth all the various methods, because I think it gets a little cumbersome in the ordinance to list everything out. But I guess what I'm saying is we could do both. I just need to look at the ordinance.
Okay. So my other comment,
And if I could,
yeah, go ahead.
The basic trouble here is we linked legality and transparency together. So if we make a mistake somehow through the process, we can invalidate the action by the council that, as you know, especially with rezonings, can be at the council level a 6-week arduous process with lots of input, long meetings, and for people to have to repeat all that, all the neighbors would have to come out again, and you'd have another 6 weeks of that, not counting the P&Z stuff before that. Another example of this would be we have the tool of Open Checkbook on our website. It's a great transparency tool. You can go on there and see who gets paid what and how much they've been paid in what fiscal year. All that information's there, but if it doesn't happen to be there, it doesn't affect the validity or legality of those underlying expenditures. Those are measured by different boxes that get checked.
Thank you, Mr. Warner. I think you put that very succinctly, leaking legality and transparency, and that's where the issues come in, and we want to make sure that there's a separation there. The other thing I wanted to say is we need to be very clear, and I think the folks from the dais who have spoken about this have been, that there's nobody up here who is trying to reduce the process, who is trying to lessen it, or send out notices to less people. We are trying to be as transparent as we have always been. We are discussing where it is most appropriate to house this policy procedure. So I guess we will continue the conversation. I would just add, as Bruce wrote in his email, I think he sent it out yesterday or today, I'm not sure when, but a year ago this was not in code. It was just an unwritten policy that the city followed. When we did the zoning update, it was put in, and I don't see a huge problem with going for it being a resolution, but I kind of want to hear everyone talk this out and then get Tom's recommendation as we go for the next 4 weeks.
Thank you, Alderman Grip. Bruce, if you come up just again for a quick second, I just want to clarify, there's 2 more second shots people want to have here. Everything that is in the ordinance would be in the resolution related to this issue of a notice and et cetera?
I think there are at least maybe a couple of things, Bruce Berger with CPED again. I think there are a couple of things in the resolution that were not and that are not in the current ordinance that got passed. And Alderman McGinnis, I think, referenced one, which, if you want, I can answer now, or we can wait and answer it, before your discussion next week too, on the city-initiated downzoning effort, essentially. So it's when we're lessening the intensity of zoning. The intention there is that generally is a non-controversial process, except for the owners who own those properties. And so what we've outlined in the resolution is the method by which the city would do that. And so, we really haven't had much guidance in how we do that. I think it's a good way to inform the impacted owners, but also make the process, move through the system when everybody's in favor of downzoning. And usually that doesn't happen very often. But anyway, that was a new addition. And then I think the other one was maybe related to the operating process that I'm looking at Alderman Mattson, but I think that came about when we had a tabling from at the council level, and if it was going to be more than a cycle before it came back to, again, notice what would be essentially a third or a fourth notice, I guess, to folks in the 200-foot radius that it's coming back, because it would have not followed after one cycle. It might have been tabled for 2 or 3 weeks, 2 or 3 cycles, and you wouldn't know if it was coming back. And so the idea was to let folks know in the 200-foot radius that it was coming back. So I think those 2 items are the 2 that are included in the resolution that are not in the current code. If that makes sense, I think that's what we added.
So to clarify, there were things added that weren't in the original ordinance?
Correct.
Additional items, okay. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yep.
So we're not taking stuff out, we're just actually adding a few things and putting it as part of it. Okay, thank you. Alderman Mattson.
Thank you, Your Honor. So you probably just did that, but I was going to have I would like to hear the answers to Alderwoman McGinnis's questions now, if you can. But I think you got one, but I don't think we got the other. And then two, to Tom's point, wordsmithing, will or shall, or I get that. I appreciate Alderman Grip asking for that, and I think we could do that. But as we know, and I've seen it over many years, if it's not an ordinance and just a resolution, it does not have the power and it can be changed pretty easily then if it's not. So I'm concerned with that, but I appreciate you looking at it.
Thank you. Brian Rusnak, Community Planning. I did want to clarify one thing. The notice requirements that are in the ordinance, you know, the letters, neighborhood meetings, posted notice, and things like that, we're not actually removing that language from the zoning ordinance. What we're trying to do is just change words like shall to may, and that's to withstand legal challenge. So I just wanted to clarify that we're not removing all of that language. We're using the resolution to supplant that. Alderman McGinnis, we have no issue with the 4 days. I think that's a great comment. I think those should be expanded to 7 days. That would include mailed notice, notice about neighborhood meetings, and posting on signs. That's our typical practice, but I think that's a great idea. We don't have a problem making that change. The other is with respect to the Zoning Board of Adjustment. Those are cases that go directly to the Zoning Board of Adjustment. The Board of Adjustment tends to be quasi-judicial in nature, and so they should be less swayed with things like, hey, I don't want this here. They're kind of rooted into kind of like a mini court hearing. And so that's typically held at the day of the public hearing.
Okay, go ahead, Alderman McGinnis.
Thank you, Your Honor. If you're done. Okay, yeah, so sometimes I have to ask twice. I apologize. So what you're saying, you're confirming that ZBA deals with special use and hardship variance, and public notification has no weight in any way, shape, or form, either in the court or at ZBA. Is that correct? I mean, there's no percentage, there's nothing
Correct.
like that.
We do notify residents within 200 feet of the
Right.
request.
But there's no legal, as there is, you know, with if there's a 20%, then it requires a supermajority. So that's why we're not doing that. And I understand it doesn't. Yeah. So a neighborhood meeting doesn't weigh it in the same way. But okay, I just, that's the only one that's, that's the only one because they can impact people greatly. So okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman McGinnis. Alderman Rawson.
It's got away. It's true. Okay.
Sorry. Thank you, JJ. I think we should be cognizant as representatives of the city that we are also not only protecting the public, but we're also protecting the city of Davenport. I think the resolution piece, all of that detail doesn't need to be in the ordinance. It could be referred, and then the resolution is where all the details should be. That makes sense to me. But then on a side note, as I'm listening to this, I signed up for notifications online, and I know we mail some of these 200-foot notices via regular mail. Is that correct?
Correct.
And that's actually an expense we could probably avoid and save some money if we use our current notification system that we have. So like on there, you can sign up for parks notifications, public works, road closures, construction, all these things. Why not add this process to that list and make it quicker so that a 7-day notice isn't as onerous and we could save some money in the process? Is that a possibility?
Sure, I would suggest that would be greatly housed in the resolution about other techniques for notification as well.
Because technology can be a great thing when it works well.
It's constantly evolving too.
And if we can get everyone to sign up, everyone in the room sign up for alerts, that's how you get things immediately, and ZBA, the notices would be delivered just as quickly.
That's a great point.
So,
May I clarify your question? You mean in addition to the mail?
no, not necessarily. I mean, so for like a lot of people that I work with, they expect a technological delivery instead of letter. But if someone's not in the 200-foot radius, certainly they would get a hard copy. If there's some way to figure out how to do that.
Well, certainly we could reference other technology and.
Oh, Corey wants our attention.
Yes.
Yes.
I would like to address that one. So I think it's important to continue the U.S. mail process because those are physical addresses. There are a lot of regulations around Davenport Direct and the Can Spam Act and allowing people to opt in versus mandatory notifications using that. So I think that, to Ryan's point, that would be better housed as an accessory notification. But because physical addressing is still kind of the gold standard, I think that needs to stay as the primary purpose. We have Nextdoor, we have Davenport Direct, we have many, many ways that we can augment. But based on the transiency of our community, I can't validate that the right person got that at the right point within 7 days through any other means but the mail.
Well, then can we add it to our notification as an option for people to get those notifications? But we can't verify if someone got it through regular mail either. All we can verify is that maybe we sent it. I mean, we don't know if they got it. We don't know if they opened it, because my mail gets delivered to my neighbors all the time.
It's the legality of Can Spam and Davenport
No, I
Direct as a tool.
understand that. I just think in the future that may change because this technology is changing, so that may change. But can we just add it to our alerts list? Just people have the option.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing no one else, again, our first consideration, we're going to basically, the public and the council have been able to speak. Will an alderman move the first consideration of the ordinance? It's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion before we move on? With that, Tiffany, would you please call the roll?
Dickman,
Yes.
Tompkins,
Yes.
Grip,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Mattson,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Ambrose, Condon,
Yes.
Rawson.
Yes.
10 yeses, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, and the ordinance will move to a second consideration with the discussion we've been talking about. Now, is there a motion to approve all items on the consent agenda? It's been moved and seconded. All roll call, please.
Tompkins,
Yes.
Grip,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Mattson,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Ambrose, Condon,
Yes.
Rawson,
Yes.
Dickman.
Yes.
10 yeses, Your Honor.
Thank you, and those items are all taken care of. Are there any other ordinance reports or resolutions this evening? Seeing none, any public with business this evening? Seeing no one, are there any of the reports of city officials? Is there a motion to adjourn? Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Any opposed, same sign. Thank you. We are adjourned.